Hello, I'm John and I'm the founding member of the Mallows Open Water Swimming Group. The reason we're making this film really was to capture some history, people's stories from the past, and to leave stories for people in the future. Years ago through the group I met somebody called Raymond Holmes who's actually in this film, and he told me a story about swimming across Morecambe Bay when he was younger and winning a race. I loved listening to his story, and I thought that story should be captured somewhere and recorded for other people to hear. And years later I met a guy called Charlie who's also in this film, and he told me stories about when he piloted people across the bay on swims and some of his adventures and how he got to know about the bay. And again, his story I thought needed recording and putting down. And then people who are in our group now, I thought if we interview them, one day what they say will be history and we can pass on for people in the future about the swims we're doing now. So that's why we're making this film, really, to capture a little piece of history of swimming in Morecambe Bay. I started the Mallows group in 2017 out of necessity, really. I've been swimming along for a couple of years in the River Lune. I never felt like I had the nerve to swim very far, although that's what I wanted to do. So I looked into, were there any groups locally? I couldn't find any. People had started to tell me swimming along was a bit irresponsible. So I formed a group. In the early days, it's very slow to get moving. I think the problem I had in the beginning was I didn't have any experience myself to offer other people who came to the group. So it pushed me really to look into lots of different swimming spots, find out about, what the conditions would be in different weathers, and just do research so I could pass something on. The thought of running a group didn't appeal to me very much. It was only to find other people to swim with for me, really, make a few friends, people I could tag along with, and learn something about open water swimming. But as the group grew to 50, 100 members, I realised I was going to have to do some work in running the group, adding new members. And I slowly warmed to the role of running a group, but I do feel a lot happier just being in the background and swimming. The first swims I did were in the River Lune, and it felt for a while that that's where it would be mainly. I got quite happy swimming in the River Lune. But as I walked up and down the promenade in Morecambe, I started to think about the possibility of swimming in the sea. The only issue I had is everybody I asked said you couldn't do it as it was too dangerous. But when I asked further questions, they didn't really know why it was dangerous. I'd never seen anybody else swimming in the sea, which half confirmed what they said. One day I was driving down the seafront with my son in the car, I think he was probably 3 years old, when I saw 3 men swimming in the sea, just where I'd wanted to swim myself. So I quickly steered the car into the car park and said that I had to go and talk to these people. They weren't as friendly as I'd hoped, and they just said they were training for something. One of the men, however, did tell me the sort of timing you need to swim in the sea regarding tides, and armed with that little bit of information, I felt like I could at least get in and give it a try.
So the very next day, I got in the sea. Didn't particularly like it, if I'm honest. Swallowed quite a lot of the water, which made me feel sick, and felt seasick for some days after. But over the coming months, that dropped off, and I felt a lot more comfortable in the sea, to the point where I just felt, I suppose, at home in the sea, and it became a favourite place to swim. And slowly but surely, people did start joining me on swims, which made me feel a little bit safer, more confident in the water. And then over time, after we'd swum in this small bay that we now call Mallows Bay, a few of us started to look out into other places up and down the coast of Morecambe Bay, the possibility of longer swings. Again, people said it was too dangerous, but we went off and did our own research. We plant ourselves in different parts of the bay where it was quite shallow, and just we'd experiment to see what would happen when we got in these different places, how the water would move us. And then we started to join all these locations together and do longer swims up and down the bay. Up until recently, I have been doing research on swimming in Morecambe Bay, and the only history I could find online was about cross bay swims from Grange to Morecambe. I think these started in the early 1900s, when they would have had fishermen piloting swimmers across the bay. Other than that, there wasn't much that I could find about organised swimming closer into Morecambe. And I did think that, apart from the odd swimmer scattered around, there had never been a formal group like ours. But recently somebody gave us a scrapbook which is full of history and pictures and cuttings that date back to the early 1950s, and we found that there was a club around here called Morecambe and Heysham Inshore Swim Club that organised lots of swims and events. I think it was mainly for people who couldn't manage the full distance of the cross bay swim. And it's been amazing to see all this history written down and in picture form. And these people would have been swimming in Morecambe Bay with very little equipment and probably a small wooden safety boat piloting them. And people were coming from far and wide to swim in Morecambe from all over the northwest, Yorkshire, Manchester. And in this scrapbook, we found the story of a man who'd swum from Lancaster to Morecambe, from the quay all the way down to Glessel Dock, up to the stone jetty in Morecambe. He was called Kendall Mellor, and just doing research, I tried to find out if this man was still alive, possibly to interview. Sadly, he's no longer with us, but I did get a chance to talk to his daughter, and she told me that he loved swimming in Morecambe and coming up here, and he's one of many people who've contributed to the history of swimming in Morecambe Bay. It can be quite serious swimming outside and doing long distances, and you have to do lots of training and preparation. But there are fun times as well when it's good to just have a bit of fun and not take it too seriously. In the beginning, when I started, I was training for a mile event in Windermere that somebody had told me about. And I'd been told by various people that it's not like swimming in a pool, and you need to get used to swimming in a wetsuit. So I bought a wetsuit online. I'd never put one on before, and my partner Lisa had said, don't go in the river by yourself with it, and wait till I get home from work and we'll go together. But I'm usually quite restless and I don't always listen to other people, so I went down to the river with the wetsuit. I tried to put it on, and I kept falling over and failing miserably. And I couldn't zip the back up, which I found extremely difficult. It must have looked like I was doing some strange form of yoga. But in the end, I resigned myself that I wasn't going to zip the back up, and how important could it be? So I sat on the riverbank, I dipped my feet in the water, sunk up to my knees in mud, started to panic and dived forward, and all I could see is bubbles. The water was very peaty and brown, nothing like a swimming pool, and panic set in. Quickly turned around and got out, sunk up to my knees in mud again, and pulled myself out onto the riverbank. And it's at that point when I realised this event that I'd entered into was going to be a lot more difficult than I'd imagined. And I started to think, why have I signed up for it? But that seems to be the story of a lot of events I have signed up for, is you do the preparation, but there's always some sort of anxiety around, will you be able to swim the distance? Can you do it? Last minute nerves. I'm sure lots of other people struggle with this, but I think the thing that's made it fun for me and kept me coming back doing long distance swimming is, despite having all these nerves and reservations, I've usually managed to overcome them enough to do the kind of swims I've wanted to do. And I think if there's one thing I do feel good about is, I've been able to set my mind on things I've wanted to do swimming wise, and despite everything, come out the other end. Another time when the group was small or smaller, I think I'd started to feel the pressure of hundreds of people joining the group and asking lots of questions. It didn't always translate into lots of people turning up for swimming. Lots of people wanted to know about the swim spots I posted, but it felt quite difficult to get people together and coordinate it. And on top of that, I think I had a bad day at work, and I came home and declared to my girlfriend that I was leaving the group and dissolving it. I don't think anyone else in the group knew that at the time, and I said I'd had enough of swimming in the group. And she kept saying, don't do that, there are other people in it. But I'd made my mind up. But in the end, I settled for leaving the group myself. The next morning, massively regretted my actions, and I fell in love with swimming again after a little sea swim, and I asked someone to let me back in the group. Since then, I've never wanted to do that again, but it does show sometimes you can really enjoy it. There might be days when, you don't enjoy it so much, but there's just something about open water swimming that always pulls me back. And I think a lot of it is due to the fact that I don't always find it easy, but the challenge of it is what keeps me coming back for more. In preparation for long distance swims, you have to do lots of miles of swimming up and down the river or the lakes or the sea just to get yourself ready for the day. An event that happened to me years ago just brings home how dangerous it can be. At the time, the group was a lot smaller, and I'd signed up for an end-to-end swim of Windermere. At the time of signing up, I had no belief at all I could do it, and once I'd signed up, I really didn't know why I'd signed up, but I realised that then I would have to do some serious training. One morning I went to the river by myself, at 7 AM I think it was. Nobody else had wanted to come, surprisingly. And I was going to swim 10 kilometres to get ready for a Windermere swim a couple of weeks down the line. As I was swimming down, I just got an urge to look up for some reason, and when I did, I saw a rowing boat coming towards me. Obviously the rower was facing backwards, and I was metres away from being hit. God knows what would have happened to me, but it brought home just how dangerous it can be. And that's a point to make about open water swimming. As much as it can be fun, it always pays to be safe. And I would advise anyone not to swim alone, really, like I was doing. But at the time, I felt like I didn't have much choice. Many of the places where we swim, particularly in the sea, it can be busy. You can have jet skis, yachts, and RNLI craft launching at any time. So we do tend to push the safety aspect of it. We don't want any incidents or accidents. And knowing the tides as well is something we've really had to familiarise ourselves with. People were right when they said that swimming in Morecambe Bay is dangerous, and it can be, but I think just knowing what time the tide comes in and when it's going out, just that one piece of information can save you a lot of trouble, just having that in your mind. And as we've swam up and down Morecambe Bay, we've really been able to zone in on specific spots of the bay, and we've got to know the conditions in lots of places. So as we're swimming up and down the bay, you do often have to change your swimming stroke or anticipate what's going to happen at certain points. And the good thing about that is we can pass that information on to other people. In 2023, I was very lucky to be invited to take part in a 15-person relay swim off Lake Windermere, organised by a swimming coach called Kerry Smith. And the idea was to get 15 people to swim the length, one after the other, which would have made it a Guinness World Record. When she was setting up the swim, she was asking did we want a day swim or a night swim, and I told her that I wanted a day swim because I'm not very keen on swimming at night. And I do find swimming the length of Windermere unnerving enough in the daytime, but night time was just a no-no for me. With the weather turning bad as well, everybody's estimated times were falling and people were taking longer. And in the end, I was the second to last person to swim, and I was told that I'd have to be doing a night swim. I think the minute I got that phone call, I could feel my pulse rising and coming out in a sweat, and I was very close to telling her I couldn't do it. But I just reasoned with myself that everybody else had done their part and that I couldn't let their efforts go to waste by dropping out. So I did the night swim, found it extremely difficult. All the way I felt quite close to getting out, but I kept going and going. And we all completed the swim. I think the sad part is with the safety boat malfunctioning at the beginning and the disruption it caused, it wasn't ratified, so it never got put down as a world record swim. Just behind me here, we've got a selection of trophies that belong to Lancaster City Swimming Club. I think Lancaster City Swimming Club have played a massive part in the history of swimming around Morecambe Bay. I think many of the swimmers who won Cross Bay swims, such as Raymond Holmes, who we've interviewed, were part of Lancaster City Swimming and Water Polo Club. And, you know, a lot of the swimmers I know today who I'd say are the technically better swimmers, they've all come from mainly Lancaster City Swimming and Water Polo Club. For the future of the group, I hope it continues. It's not about adding numbers to the group really, it's just about engaging people in the group to swim more, and the relationships it builds. That I think that's the best thing about this group that I've taken from it all. Sometimes see people join the group with no swimming experience, they don't know anybody, and within months they're totally embedded in the group, they found a group of friends and they're quite confident swimming, and it's a really good feeling when I see that happening. I just like the group to continue, for people to push themselves a little bit and overcome whatever it is they feel's in the way to doing the kind of swims they want to do. But it is quite a good group in terms of it's non-elitist. There's a massive range of abilities, shapes and sizes of people, and everybody seems to feel welcome, and I think that's the best part of it.